Hello and welcome to the last word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we are back for the latest round of therapy. I gotta say, for those that are looking like I'm smiling, it's a nervous smile because I'm just not sure what we're going to quite be looking to discuss in this next however long. Look, if you're with us for the very first time, where have you really been? I mean, where God have you been? We are on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms, we're of course on X. We're on Instagram. We are on Blue Sky too. And we are back to review Tottenham Hotspur 3, Liverpool 6th. Liverpool 6th. Look, again, we understand, we are in the midst of an injury crisis. 10 players out that would arguably be in and around the first team. But there will be conversations to be had on this show that may not please everybody. But that is what we're here to discuss. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by three of our returning regular panelists to Last Word on Spurs. I've got Compère Events Entertainment host Richard Cracknell, who can adapt, for you to know that. Along with Crackers, we've got broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams. We've also got the wonderful Marlon at the Spurs Kings. Everybody's putting in a real shift during these next 3-4 months to come. Like I say, happy Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. I appreciate as a Spurs perspective at the moment, we might be feeling very merry with what's going on at the moment in terms of this game itself, but bigger picture, maybe people might have a different idea. Look, we'll talk you through very quickly before we get into these wonderful guests, the match facts and stats from that game and how it all played out. As I said at the top of the show, Tottenham Hotspur 3, Liverpool 6. For Tottenham, 9 shots on target to Liverpool's 24. 5 shots for Tottenham in respective to Liverpool's 12. Touches in the box, Tottenham 26 to Liverpool's 50. 1 yellow card to 2 apiece in Liverpool's favour. 6 keeper saves for Fraser Forster, busy the 2 keepers. 7 fouls to 9 in Liverpool's favour. 7 corners for Tottenham, 5 for Liverpool. Tottenham edging their possession stats at 51.5% to Liverpool's 48.5. And XG, for those that have got an interest in that metric, 1.31 for Tottenham to Liverpool's 4.94. Now, it's fair to say, look, I always say when we do these shows, we really only cover what is the tip of the iceberg. There's just so much in and around Tottenham that what we would like to try and do is give you a perspective as to where things are. Look, we know with these shows, not everybody will agree. Everyone will have their different thoughts. This is what makes this show so special to what it is. So, look, I am going to open, if I can, with Cracks to begin the analysis to this game that we witnessed, that we saw. Look, crazy game. But Cracks, Tottenham 3, Liverpool 6. Liverpool remain 4 points clear at the top of the Premier League after braces from Diaz and Salah earn. For what you got to say for Liverpool is a thoroughly deserved victory. They were the better side. It's a 21st win in 25 for Arne Slot. Spurs, many would say they admirably rallied during periods of that game, but it always felt like it was going to be one step too far. And I will re-emphasise this point. Spurs are missing at the moment 6 starters, 10 overall out. They made no changes from the Carabao Cup win against Manchester United, that quarterfinal that they did succeed in going through. Liverpool, on the other hand, they made 7 changes and are absolutely flying. It was a game too many. There are many questions to be asked in and around the football club, from board to manager to players and in general. How do you see, Cracks, that game as an overview before we get into all of that we've got to cover?
Rick, 6 goals conceded at home, isn't it? Evening, everybody. Merry Christmas if you celebrate. Hope it's a good one for you. 6 goals at home. You can point to, we got 3 goals against Liverpool. A couple of those they'd taken their foot off of the gas a little bit and then came back again. Rick, this is just unsustainable. It's whether you like him or not, you like him as a person, who he is, what he stands for, what he's trying to do. It's just unsustainable. It's unsustainable football long term. It's just not pragmatic enough. You can't get done by 6 at home. I get that we've got a lot of players that are out, which should probably just, give us a little bit more than what we've currently got. But then surely isn't that even more reason to try and tuck in a little bit, be a little bit harder to beat, rather than just, ploughing on again with this fabled Ange ball, and it's just not working. The only way this works is if he gets a big squad of really, really top quality, top class players. And do you think that their leader is actually going to give him that? It's not happening. It is just not going to happen. And look, we're gonna win some games doing that, but we're also gonna lose games doing that. I mean, our last few scores, that's like Sunday morning's park football, isn't it? It's, this isn't top level football score lines. You get the occasional one, but this is every week. This is just like pub football. That's the sort of score lines you're seeing from that. So I don't think Ange is fully the problem at the club. There's a lot of problems there. I'm sure we'll get on to discuss those, what's going on at board level and such. But as it stands, he's a square peg in a round hole at the moment. He's not a manager to suit Tottenham's business structure, or ENIC's business structure, I should say, for the type of players that he needs. So I don't know. I mean, look, just looking in the comments now, if you're listening on audio, we get the comments down the side. Somebody's just said, Marcos, so does Crackers want Conte back? No. I mean, why is it when you question something, everybody has to go, oh, so you want this then, do you? It's like, no, there is degrees in between that. As far as Ange is one way, Conte is the other. But there is solutions out there that sit somewhere between the two of them. So because I don't want white doesn't mean that I want like something, jet black. Maybe a bit of grey. There is grey out there. So Rick, it's just not working. It really is just not working, sadly.
Look, we'll come on to Ange in more detail. We most certainly will. Look, I mean, in terms of I'll come around to Russ. I mean, look, the game itself, this was always going to be a difficult one for Spurs. I will re-emphasise that point as at the start of the show again for the balance of play and where things are. Spurs are currently missing 10 players. They're currently missing 6 starters. But considering 6 at home, in my books alone, is just seemingly unacceptable. I have to say that. And you know what? You'd argue the Solanke and Kulusevski goals make the scoreline slightly more respectable. Before we come on to the board, Ange Postecoglou, the players, Russ, what was your actual overall take, if I can ask you, of the game itself?
We're miles off it compared to the big teams. Utterly schooled, at will, tactically so naive. But we've come to expect that. An absolute horror show, Rick. In Spurs, no one can hear you scream. I mean, it is absolutely terrible what we're being served up at the moment. It is not acceptable to concede 9 goals in 2 home games. 9. Forget the fact that we scored 6. That is part of the problem. And the goals that we got today, incidentally, Rick and everyone, and I'm sorry, I didn't wish you all a happy Christmas, and I really do. And thank you for being with us on, another absolutely wretched night to be a Spurs fan. And, we got 3 superb goals, but you just knew. I mean, I said to a friend of mine who I was watching it with, I said, they're going to get angry now, Liverpool. And sure enough, they did, and they just score. Will, and I know that we're missing players, the principal ones, Vic, Romero, Mickey van de Ven. Those are the 3 that I think would have made a difference. Should he have played a doggy today? We'll talk about that later. I thought Jed Spence had a very, very difficult afternoon, but it was Keystone Cops defending, to be honest with you, Rick. And, it hurts to have to sit here with everybody else and all of the fans listening and watching, knowing that we're watching an absolute S show. And, this is a coaster that we're on, and we're going to stay on it until Daniel Levy, if he does, turns off the mains. So, this is the kind of football I think we've got to get used to. And I think there's now 3 cults amongst our fans. Ange out, Levy out is cult number 1. Levy out, Ange in is cult number 2. And Ange out is cult number 3. That is how split as a fan base we are. And we are as split as a fan base on the pitch as well. I mean, it is just a mess. And for any Spurs fans, and we all love the club, who think that if we'd have had our starting 11 today, all fit, we still would have lost that game. Liverpool, I'm absolutely convinced, are going to be serious this season in so many competitions. And I find it frightening that we've got to play 2 games against them to try and get to a League Cup final, with chasing a trophy that as a club we so desperately need. But to sum up, 2nd best today and 11th best in the Premier League. And that's a stat actually that also is nowhere near good enough.
Got to say on that point, I think before I go to Miles there, I think what Russ and Crackers, and tell me if you're wrong, guys, what you're reflecting there is just, it's the manner of the defeat, right? I mean, we can all be beaten. I think many went into this game probably expecting Liverpool to beat us, because Liverpool are a far at the moment superior side with better players at the moment available. I think we've seen with Tottenham that they can give anybody a game on their day when they've got their best players available to them. But what I think has been concurring by many Spurs fans out there, not all, again, I think I have to say that for balance, not all, that it's the manner of the defeat and the nature of the goals we're conceding, the amount and the frequency of what we are conceding is the big, big problem for many, many fans. Miles, welcome back. I know for you, it feels like you're just not getting a break at the moment. Mate, they absolutely love you on the show. They do adore you. And I will just make that point. We looked at the game here, and I think there's a general consensus that we all know this, that the players are, to use the teenage term, cooked. They're playing the best side in the country. They rested players in the Champions League for Liverpool. They then had the Everton game postponed. They then rested players again in the Carabao Cup. I mean, look, to get it out of the way, we know this. They're better than us. It definitely helps it. But for you, Miles, the manner of the performance and the nature of the amount of goals we're conceding, is that the biggest worry? Or what do you take away as an overview from the game itself and the way it played out before we do come on to the bigger concerns at hand by a lot of the fan base at the moment?
Yeah, of course. Look, as you can see, like, if everyone can see in my face, I'm numb to it now. It's becoming very numb. I'm watching the game and I'm just going, here we go again. It's just Spurs. It's just what we do and everything like that in the last couple of weeks. But I think what's concerning for me is I was always told, especially by Levy, he'd always put a team out there that will compete. That's all. Even if we can't win the game, it will compete. But for what I saw for 60, 70 minutes today, that was not a team that could compete with Liverpool. That's not even a team that should be on the same pitch as Liverpool, let alone the same league. It was literally, it got to a point where I'm thinking, I actually feel sorry for the players, because yes, Archie Gray and Spence are in a team, but they were just getting exposed. They were up against probably one of the best players in the world, and fair play to them. They coped as best they could. But what else did we expect? It was nearly 7, 8, 9. That is the result it could have been today. And yet, for me, the manager, especially in that first half, has left them to go out and expect the same result. And you're kind of looking at it going, and you can't do this anymore. It's kind of, you have to look at certain games and go, I can't leave these players to be exposed. And today was one of those, especially when it went to 2-1. Go in and try, say something to them and go, we need it to go in at 2-1. Don't have Spence halfway up the pitch, right? Calm it for 10 minutes, because unfortunately, Liverpool have the players to expose us. And that's literally what they did today. And I wasn't here expecting us to beat Liverpool, but I'm expecting us to be able to go out and compete. And now I'm just looking at going, well, you've gone from one extreme to the next in the space of a week, where Southampton couldn't lay a glove on us, and that's why they're bottom. And then you've got the team at the top who just literally went, well, you're Southampton to us. So it's like, what are we doing? Look, it is the manner of the defeat. I am literally, I don't know where the next victory is coming from. And I think the Man United result today, and I said this to Russ earlier, the Man United result today summed up how bad that second part of Thursday really was, and we should never have been conceding 3 to Man United either. It's got to be looked at, and everyone needs to open their eyes and go, what do they want from this football club over the next few weeks and the next few years? Because we can't be having this every week. This is just not, as everyone said, it's not sustainable anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I think that, on the show, we try and offer the balance that many look for out there. I think we're all commonly aware this isn't just one issue. Ange Postecoglou is not, maybe some would argue that he is one of the major issues. He is, but of course, we're here on the back of this game where there was all due respect, a protest being taken place by Tottenham fans before the game, and then there was, a direct appeal during the game to form, again, some form of a protest. That unfortunately, it seems that there was how do I put this in the most politest way? I'm trying to think of my words and pick them very, very carefully. There was a very much pre-planned attempt by Spurs officials to ensure that with regards to the protest, you wouldn't really see it. And what I mean by that is, for those that are broadcasters around the world, for those that are maybe not Spurs fans, I think for the neutral, they wouldn't have been aware there was a protest because there was not enough light shaded on it. I think, look, if you was in and around the ground, if you were aware acutely on Spurs social media, Spurs fans knew there was a protest taking place, right? I think what I would say is that in terms of the numbers that were there, I think there was a really good, a good number to begin with in terms of trying to show an emphasis of the shift with regards to where the fan base feel right now on the actual hierarchy. I think the problem is when it got into the stadium, we never saw that translated. And that was not due to Spurs fans. That was due to, let's be honest about it, the board doing their utmost best to ensure you wouldn't see a translation of that inside the stadium. So I will come on to that in a bit more detail. Look, again, I'll make the point. There's a lot of comments around
Rick,
right now.
Rick,
please,
that's why I call him dear leader. That's the actions of a North Korea. I mean, if they're not allowing fans to make a protest and have their say for the worry of it getting out to the wider world, then that's dictatorship. That is North Korea. And that's why I've always called him dear leader, because that's what they're like. They're the paranoia of them. They can't be looked at. They can't have their public image dented or questioned or anything. This is the type of people that you're dealing with. That, maybe the makers of Squid Games 2 might see that and get a bit angsty about it. Maybe somebody looking to come and do some concerts here might get a bit angsty about it. The NFL might not like it. Get that shut down. Get it shut down now. It's just awful. So on behalf of the Spurs going public, that was supposed to happen today, and Spurs shut it down. Make of that what you will. So tell people, go out on social media, message the club. Why was this shut down in such a way? It doesn't. We're the fans of the football club, which was what we're supposed to be firstly and foremostly. So question the club. Why have you shut this down? Why are the patrons of this football club, the fans of this football club, the generational support of this football club being shut down with having a say on how it's being run? Question it. You have to question it. They don't own this club as such. They're merely custodians. That's all they are. This club is not theirs. It's ours. It's our club. So it needs questioning.
Yeah, but Rick,
come in.
Just a quick point to make. 2 points. There are a significant amount of our fans who don't think that Daniel Levy should go, whatever we all think, okay? And the other thing is, a lot of this, apart from actions and the spending of money, which we can talk about later, which has been quite big, but spent incorrectly in a lot of cases by Mr. Levy, over £1.5 billion, by the way. The president of Real Madrid, his equivalent, would be holding press conferences, interviews on a regular basis. It's quite normal. But we never hear from Daniel Levy apart from in a sanitized interview, maybe once or twice a year. And Crackers is quite right. Their PR department, in other words, the club, their PR department or press department, it's like Pravda back in the old days. And Crackers, I think, is quite right. We do have to start asking big questions and not being fobbed off and getting proper answers, and people in the big positions facing up to the concerns of an awful lot of the people who their salaries and contribute to their very large wages.
I think it's also important just for context in what I'm referring to here, for those that may not have been aware of this, to bring Marlon in before we do go and hear from Ange Postecoglou directly, is that there were some black balloons being released by fans inside that stadium on the 24th minute. And I think it's fair to say that, again, they would probably reference themselves as change for Tottenham. A lot of the people that are behind this obviously latest protest, that there was not enough generated that they would like to obviously be in that stadium. And that's because purely on the basis that Daniel Levy and the board were reported, I have to say this, instructing stewards to pop and confiscate the balloons before they actually got the chance to go off. I mean, Miles, we'll let you get your take on this when we do hear from Ange Postecoglou. Your initial thoughts on that protest beforehand? Because what I would just say is that for those that missed it, in terms of the numbers outside the ground, I think there was bigger than we've seen before, and it has to grow from somewhere. And what was your take about the way it was then translated into the stadium and the fact that it wasn't really picked up by major broadcasters at that moment in time, that I think that was the intended plan for it to be?
Look, when it comes to this club and Daniel Levy, I'm not surprised. I've look, I used to be a steward years ago, back at the old White Hart Lane, so I would not be surprised if they were told to take this off them. It's like anything bad against him, he doesn't like. He takes it quite personally. So look, at the end of the day, all I can say to everybody is anyone who was there today at that protest, let's keep this going, because we need to be heard. As Cracker said, it's our club, it's not theirs. One day they will sell it to someone else. So who will still be here? We'll still be here. They won't be. So let's keep going. Let's get our voices heard, because eventually they'll have to listen. It will just take numbers and numbers. And look, everyone who's sitting on the fence at the moment, trust me, you will be on our side eventually, and you'll come over and you'll start to realize, and you'll be more than happy that we've started this now, because at the end of the day, Daniel Levy is a massive, massive issue with this club at the moment. He's there. When I say issue, he's got positives and there's negatives. I'm not saying everything he does is a negative, but at the end of the day, what we saw today on that pitch sums up his tenure at this club. And I think that's what people need to realize. We're not, at the end of the day, we've now got a manager that doesn't suit the way the board want to work. And we can clearly see that, because we're conceding 6 at home. Everyone go back to think about the 90s. I remember conceding 6 at home to Chelsea. It's not allowed. You shouldn't be conceding 6 at home to anyone. No. But then you have to include Chelsea a couple of weeks ago, where we're 2-0 up and we conceded 4 at home. Come on, we need this. This is the issue right now. If you're going to bring in a manager like this, you need a certain type of clientele, especially players, to suit. And this at the moment is exactly what we're getting. So look, the board can do what they got to do, but as a fan base, as long as we can all be on the same page, that's where we need to get to at this present moment.
You mentioned a really vital point there, Miles, and I totally agree with a lot what you're saying there, is that everybody has their own tipping point, and at the end of the day, it's up for everybody to get to their own tipping point with regards to whether that's the manager, with regards to whether it's some of the players, with regards to that's with the hierarchy. And look, nobody should be telling anybody what they should and can feel. That is your own decision. That's the end of the day, as a fan, your own choice. But I think it's fair to say that, as we know, there's a lot more problems around Tottenham now than just one thing. I think Russ put it so eloquently at the start. It's around the hierarchy, around the manager, around the group of players. I know so many fans now that are very much disconnected to where this club is at and currently what we are seeing. Again, and this is the crazy thing, we are in a Carabao Cup semi-final, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to. We are still in the FA Cup. In terms of the Premier League and where Spurs find themselves in now, it's not a pretty place. Spurs currently at the moment, just to bring in that table to full effect, which I will need to do, Spurs have now dropped into the bottom half of the Premier League. So Tottenham are now 11th. Just again, to bring this into context, 17 games played, 23 points. Spurs, they are, I believe, they've got the joint most amount of goals scored in the Premier League. It actually might be top. And again, conceding-wise now by 6. It really does take effect on that defensive record, which beforehand we knew going into this game, Spurs did have the best defence in the Premier League. Ange Postecoglou has been speaking to the media. We are going to go there next. We're going to bring you Ange Postecoglou's interview in, and we're going to be bringing that in right now, and we'll be back with you after Ange Postecoglou has spoken.
I was just calling to say that I miss you.
Ange, remarkable game of football. What's your immediate reflections on that?
Oh, look, it's obviously a painful one for us. Credit to Liverpool; they were too good for us today. They were, they're in a great moment. They're in great form. They obviously feel really confident, and it was just a bridge too far for us today. We looked, we looked like we lacked a little bit of sort of energy, which is understandable.
You're scoring goals for fun, but you're also conceding far too many here at home in the last 3 games, League and Cup. It's 13 now conceded. Do you put that down to the fact that you're so short of your first choice defence, really? Or is it a bit more than that?
Look, you know what? I'm just going to stop answering these questions. If people can't see the obvious, I'm not going to point it out. So, look, make what you will of it. Yes, we're conceding goals, But if you want to discount the fact that we're missing a goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs and a left-back as well, and that hasn't coincided with what we're doing. So I don't know what to say anymore. So I think people make up their minds in their own way, where they either think what I'm doing is good or they don't think what I'm doing is good, and that's fine.
Listen, I'm not discounting it. I mean, anybody would miss those players.
Well, you are when you're kind of suggesting that, is there anything more than that? Well, it's fairly significant. If you took out Liverpool's goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs and a left-back, even Liverpool, but any other team apart from Liverpool, I think they might find it tough going as well.
So there you go. That was Ange Postecoglou on the back of that defeat to Liverpool. Again, I will make this point. I have to say this on the show and in general, there is a lot of split amongst Spurs fans right now with regards to who feels this is working, who feels it isn't working, who feels the fact that he's been really let down by the amount of injuries that he's got, who feels he's been let down by the previous transfer window. I mean, look, the reality of where things are with Tottenham, I think it's really important to bring it into play, because I will say this on a number of shows that I've done with regards to any manager that has been in charge of Tottenham. You can only judge his situation based on the facts and stats, right? And look, we have said this now. I think it's the 3rd time I'm saying this in the opening half an hour of this show. We have got 10 players out. We have got 6 starters missing. But at the same time, you can only judge what is in front of your eyes when it comes to the players that are available to Tottenham right now. Spurs have suffered their 8th Premier League defeat of the season. We did not lose 8 in the Premier League until April of last season. I believe it's 3 wins in the last 11 games. Tottenham have lost 20 Premier League games out of the last respective 42. This was the 3rd home game in a row where Tottenham conceded at least 3 goals. Spurs have now conceded 4, 3 and 6 goals at home in their last 3 home matches, gaining just 1 clean sheet at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in the last 24 matches. Now, Cracks, you actually said something, I believe, kind of midway through your opening period about Ange Postecoglou and where you are with him. And I think this is why, again, this show is, why the show is what it is, right? Because everybody has a different feeling. Everybody has different views on where they are with a manager. And I think you said this, I want to go back 6 months ago, you said this, Cracks. Is there a case, why does it feel, right, that it has to be either complete gung-ho or ultra defensive? Is there not a case where there's managers out there that do offer a sense of balance where you can appreciate good football with an element of decent defending? And again, I will make this point just because people don't think I'm going crazy here. We are acutely aware that he's missing 10 players. He's got 6 starters out. But I mean, if I remember under Maurizio Pochettino, Cracks, from season 2, 3 and 4, I saw a general progression, not only in the way the players were coached, but in the way in which players fought for their defending of the way they play, for where their attacking ability was. I mean, just on this point, the key thing is Ange has made it very, very clear, and again, we'll bring in his post-match presser very shortly. He will not adapt and he will not be changing. So you made the point for you. The only way this is going to work is if we buy him the complete caliber of players that he wants that is going to make this work, which I think is going to be a huge, huge, huge amount of money and will require experienced players that have been able to get their teams over the line, that have got the ability to read when you can go forward in the way he wants, but at the same time be intelligent enough to know when to be able to drop back, which unfortunately these players, for me, either aren't getting the message or they're just simply not following parts of the instruction. So just on this point, Cracks, where are we in your mind? When you say it's not sustainable, do you mean by until the end of the season? Do you mean right now? I mean, is there any benefit right now in getting rid of him at this point in time?
Well, to get rid of him at this moment in time, that's just not a thing you can just go get rid of him, because someone's got to come in now. Can't be Ryan Mason again. It's just come on, that's just ridiculous. A club at this level, or a club that's looking to be at a certain level, doesn't keep getting rid of managers and then bringing in, a Ryan Mason type, whoever it happens to be at their club. So, if he goes, we've got to have the right person to come in. It's just not sustainable short term, long term, because he's got this philosophy and that is it. And he's just completely entrenched in it. You just see from that interview that, a little insight into his personality. He's of that sort of mindset and generation that's a real doubles down on everything. So even when they know something's not working, double down on it. Go do it even more. I think we saw that in that Chelsea game last season when, it was, we ended up with, what did we have? 2 sent off, didn't we? And we went just even more Ange ball. And it was like, okay, well, that was a bit mad. And we nearly actually came back into it. But that should have set alarm bells going off, Rick, that it's like, well, hang on a minute. You can't do this in top level football. You've got to pick moments and sometimes tuck in, like the Man U game the other night, 3-0 up, tuck in, just hold the ball for 10 minutes. But, this isn't just the likes of us gathered round our internet and laptops and microphones, butchers, bakers and candlestick makers that we are. You listen to the radio, the TV, and you listen to people that have played the game, and they're all saying exactly the same thing of, this isn't working. When you get a couple of goals up, you tuck in for 15, 20 minutes and you become hard to beat and you frustrate. And so, it's just not going to be something that we can do long term, because we have to be realistic. Even with the most benevolent of boards, like that would buy you players, we're a long way off getting a caliber of player that could make this maybe sustainable, maybe. And I just don't even think it is in the Premier League. This is the most difficult league in the world to play in. It really, really is. Anyone can beat anyone. The quality from top to bottom of this league is unreal. This is serious footballers playing right the way, even down to Southampton. There's decent footballers in those sides that on their day can turn it on and beat anyone. So you've got to find different ways and different solutions. Even more so that he has got 10 players out. Even more so, he should be looking to be more pragmatic, because when you've lost the spine of your team, then that's when you've really got to look to change things and become a little bit more difficult to beat. But he just seems to go even more Ange ball when he's up against it. Rick, I don't think he's got the chops for this. I really don't. You see him in that interview. That was a perfectly reasonable, polite question that he faced from that BBC reporter there, and he's gone off at him. He's absolutely gone off at him for no reason. What was wrong with that question? I mean, this wasn't.
I don't think it was a provocative question to ask him.
No, not at all. He hasn't come in near him. He hasn't done sometimes what the Moose does at Talk Sport and throws like a bit of a mad one in that causes a manager to get a bit spiky, or sometimes he'll throw one in because it's like poking the bear through the cage, isn't it? And I think he's going to find that if he's reacting like this, he's going to start getting some more spiky questions so that he does do this, because that's great copy for the people, you know, that putting TV shows out or radio programs or writing column inches. They love it when a manager gets a little bit spiky and goes off on one. We still talk to this day, 150 years later, about Kevin Keegan looking like me with his headphones on. Like, I'll love it. I mean, it's one of those great moments, isn't it? And we still talk about it now. When you think of Kevin Keegan, like, very few people think about being the world's greatest footballer for a few years. You all think of him absolutely losing his shit with his headphones on for Sky TV. So he's going to find a lot more, and he's been ever so spiky lately, really, really spiky. You can't do this. You cannot be like this. You've just got to roll with the punches on these questions that you get. But he looks like a man that's really struggling, really under pressure, and really sort of struggling to keep his emotion in check. He's out of his depth, he ain't got the chops for it, Rick.
Russ, can I just ask you, for those that are suggesting that, I'll just put it back, you know, Cracker's words there, we haven't got the stomach for a rebuild. We haven't got the stomach to go through this. What, I mean, I've got no words for this football club. I've got to say, Russ.
I know.
Where I'm at, for me personally, and I always want to try to be honest, you know, when I look at a manager, and it's been, when it's worked magnificently. It has worked magnificently, but when it's bad, it is so bad. And I just think back to Cracker's point there, that with a game like this one here, when you've got 10 players out, you've got 6 starters missing, you've got a situation where Liverpool have actually rested pretty much 9 of their respective players for this game. We've played the same team that we played from Thursday against United, which quite obviously we were knackered, don't get me wrong. You would think that logically, you would think to yourself, well, okay, we've got to drop 30 yards. We've got to be a bit more, to Cracker's word there, pragmatic, that to operate the same brand of football that you played the previous game or the previous week. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that Ange has never changed, because we have said on this show there has been times that he's changed, and we've acknowledged that. We acknowledged that the earlier part of the season, there was an improvement around set pieces. We've acknowledged around the point that, yes, defensively, we were the 3rd best team going into this game, which quite honestly tells you there's been an improvement defensively. But your eyes can't fool you and lie to you when you're seeing what you're seeing in terms of a game management perspective. Is what you're seeing here, Russ, workable in any way, unless he gets the players that he wants?
Well, no, I mean, look, he obviously needs better players, Rick, in my opinion. But if you're playing Liverpool, who are ferocious pressers, why, with tired players that he must have known about, and he mentioned in that interview with the BBC, why would you say play out tippy-tappy football from the back, and that's how we're going to do it? Why wouldn't you be slightly more pragmatic occasionally? Why wouldn't you just kick the ball long? We got Dominic Solanke. He could, you know, fight for the ball, hold it up, then you can go forward. Why do we have to be so predictable? Mo Salah, after the game, you know, well done, Mo. Great victory for Liverpool. He smiled and he said, well, we knew how they would play. You know, and that sums it up. You know, I think we have to ask the question, when is Ange Postecoglou going to look himself in the mirror and actually say, do you know what, mate? I might be getting some of this wrong, and I've got to do something about it, because I want to be the manager of this football club. And I've noticed, Rick...
Will he ever do that, Russ? Will he ever do that, Russ? Will he ever do it in your opinion?
I don't know. I'm not Ange Postecoglou. I think any normal human being, where everything is going against you again and again and again and again, you would have to look for solutions. And what Crackers is saying, a lot of our viewers and listeners, is he doesn't want to change. And I've noticed now he's just upped the game a little bit in the interviews to calling out his players in public. And this is always the beginning of the end. Once you start doing that, whether you're right or wrong, managers really, you just can't do that. It's left for the dressing room. All the great managers would never do that in public.
Yeah, weirdly, Russ, they do seem to be still playing for him, because even when we were getting battered today, we did actually have a little bit of a go and nicked a couple of goals. So, you know, they're either terrified of him or they love him. I don't know which one it is. Really don't know.
I think you're right, but there's clearly issues. Madders comes off with half an hour to go. He's hooked again. He doesn't look happy. What's going on there? I mean, that's a story for a journalist to ask him about, but he wouldn't like it, of course. But obviously there's a problem there, isn't there? Because he wasn't injured, and he just keeps being hooked. He scored a lovely goal today. He's actually played all right in the last couple of games.
He's done a really good. I mean, in terms of stats alone this season, when people might not like this, again, for me, he's been a bit part player to some degree. I think when Spurs play well, Maddison plays well. I think when Tottenham don't play well, Maddison doesn't play well. That's like a lot of the team, to be fair. Apart from Kulusevski, I think Kulusevski's been our only player, in my opinion, that has been consistent through most of the season. By maybe 1 or 2 games, Palace away, you would argue that he hasn't turned up. But Russ, just to come back to you on this point, because I think it's key that I ask you this. Would there be any benefit, in your opinion, sacking Ange Postecoglou right now? Are you going to get any uplift in sacking Ange Postecoglou right now for you? Do you give him more money in January? It's probably, again, a fair question to ask you.
If they give him money, will it be enough? Probably not. Are the players available in January? Almost certainly not of the quality that we need. Would you sack Ange Postecoglou? Performances many a chairman would have done by now already. But I think the club and Mr. Levy and his board and the owners probably will think he'll get us back up a bit in the Premier League. We're still in the FA Cup, 9th in the table in the Europa League and in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, albeit against Liverpool. However, there is a caveat. Mr. Levy did sack Jose 5 days before a final. So you never know. But I think it's unlikely unless we have some seriously bad results. And today was getting on that way. I mean, I did think to myself, if Liverpool got 7, 8 or 9, heaven forbid, and thank goodness they didn't.
Which they could have done.
Would that have been the tipping point where the voices in Mr. Levy's ears and his own brain would have said, you know what, this isn't working and I've got to make a change. It could be that he was a couple of goals conceded away from that sort of decision. I mean, I can't second guess these people, Rick. None of us can.
I know.
If we're honest.
Yeah, I mean, Miles to bring it. Go on, Russ.
I would have been, if I was running the club, I would have been worried about the form from March to the end of the season and the stats and the data, which weren't good. That last summer, I would have been worried about that.
Again,
so if I was running the club, he may not be here. I don't know, but I'm just thinking out loud.
But again, so we said at that point, Tottenham have lost 20 Premier League games out of the last 42. That stat can't lie. I mean, Miles, to bring you in. Look, again, just to bring some balance to this conversation, which I always want to try and do, is that this is the first time we've been beaten by 1 goal more this season, and it is the best team in Europe. We are without 3 of the current back 4 missing. We've got on goalkeeper that is missing as well. The rest of the squad is properly paper thin. There's no doubt about that. But I think even more so, where I double down on this point to come to you, Miles, is that when you are in the process of being beaten the way we was in that game, and yes, we got goals back, surely the logic is at some point you've got to try and shut up shop and keep it tighter. I mean, the thing what I will say is about Liverpool, Chelsea and Arsenal is they have looked in degrees at points really well coached and organised this season. And in comparison, all of them can defend. But again, I will make that point. Spurs going into this game did have the 3rd best defensive record in the Premier League. So I'm not sitting there saying we're shipping 9 goals every week. But what you can't get away from is that this is the 3rd home game in a row where Tottenham have conceded at least 3 goals. Again, I'll make that point. They've conceded 4, 3 and 6 in their last 3 home matches. I mean, for those that say this has got more legs, Miles, for those that say he needs more time, he needs more money, he needs more patience, what do you say to those fans at the moment for you?
Look, for me today, a big turning point was, and I think I mentioned this earlier, was when it was 2-1. And that was the time for him to protect the players that were out there. And he didn't. He just left them to play exactly the same way. And this is why we've ended up on the scoreline that we've had. And look, Ange can sit there and moan about his defense, for the last 3 games and go, and get a bit spiky about it. But okay, you've lost the last 3 games, but when you had your defense, we were still losing games anyway. Like, I don't remember, where was the excuse against Palace when these injuries weren't there, when we had our back 4? Where was his excuses against Arsenal? Where was his excuses against Newcastle? We're still losing games, and for me, at the present moment, what we kind of need to do is look. For me personally, right now, I personally think there's no one good enough out there that will come to Spurs and work with this board right now. So
you mean in this moment in time now? If you was to sack him right now, you're referring to?
If I was to sack him right now, I don't believe the board will go out. Everyone's going, especially people that want Ange out right now. They're all going, I want this manager, I want that manager. The Spurs board are not going to go give you that manager. They're not going to go get Areola because he's in a contract. They're not going to go get Thomas Frank because guess what? He's in a contract. So you're going to have to look for someone who's out of work. So you're then left with Graham Potter. Is Graham Potter then any better than Ange? I don't really know, because I personally, when I look at the jobs that the managers after he left, they done a better job at Brighton than Potter did, right? And you have to look at what Chelsea are doing. Poch did a better job than Graham Potter. So I'm looking at going, where do I sit at the moment? Do I sit at the thing? Do I trust Ange to go and deliver? I probably don't, because at the end of the day, 8 defeats, 20 in a calendar year is not great reading. But as you said earlier, we're only getting beat by the one goal here and there. But where do we go? What do we do right now? Is stick or twist. And at the present moment, do you go with someone that's more likely to go and get us? Look, we're still in the Carabao Cup. Do you go get us a manager that can actually go and compete in that and get us the FA Cup and maybe even the Europa League?
Miles, just to counteract you on that point, he's won wherever he's been. He's won trophies.
This is but there's a big but in that, right? Yeah, he's won at Celtic, right? I think at the end of the day, most of us could win at Celtic and win it. Yeah, do you give him that second season? The way the league form's going, I personally don't trust that he's going to deliver. And I think what the problem we've got at Spurs right now is January's round the corner. Would you trust this man?
This is what I'm asking you. Do you think giving him more money is going to solve what you see on pitch with the football for you tactically?
Tactically, right now, no. Personally, no. I wouldn't do it because I don't trust that. Just in certain situations, in certain games, let's take the Man United game, right? I didn't blame him for that, right? That was all down to Foster.
I agree, and that's what he said in the last show. That was not down to him. The Man United game was not an Ange Postecoglou, crazy tactical situation. That was down to a goalkeeper that made 2 errors.
But let's go back to Chelsea when we're 2-0 up, right? Where he doesn't see out the game and he doesn't think, hold on, let's keep shape, let's keep this 2-0 before Chelsea come back at us. He doesn't do that. Let's take today. We're getting taken to pieces, and we go and score. Maddison wonderfully gets us back in that game, which we didn't deserve, right? We did not deserve to get back in that game, but he has, right? We've got Archie Gray and Spence playing out of position, right? And I'm not going to sit there, and I've always said this, I don't care. If you're playing out of position, I'm not expecting much of you. So I'm looking at going, right, how can I protect these 2 players? Do you think Arteta is sitting there, that Lewis Skelly, and he's gone to his Arsenal, Declan Rice and all their party, leave him exposed, let's keep playing away? I bet they've helped him along to get him in that team so he doesn't get exposed and it doesn't affect his confidence. I'm sorry, but if you can see the 6 goals today, I'd rather have lost 2-1, right, than 6, because all this is going to do is this confidence going into next week, right? And we've got Nottingham Forest. How many Spurs fans are sitting there thinking that we're going to go and get a result against Nottingham Forest in a couple of days' time, right? They're on form and our backs are up against the wall. This is Nottingham Forest. If we're looking at it, do they have a better squad than we do? Probably not. But are they being coached differently? And is the manager doing stuff to make sure that he's getting the best out of them? He is right now. And look where they are in the table. And this is Nuno of all people. So, look, I just don't know. I'm fuming, but at the same time, I've got my head screwed on going, I know getting rid of him may not be the answer right now, but I just don't know where to go. And that's my biggest issue. I really don't know where to go.
I mean, look, just
Rick,
to be clear.
Rick, can I just jump in there? Sorry. Where you said, like, the Man U game's not down to Ange because of, Forster's made those mistakes.
Yeah.
But for me, is he, we don't know this, but let's surmise that he's saying, I want you to play like this. I want you, when you get a ball back to you, I don't want you kicking it long. I want you finding...
Yeah, that's fair.
I want you to find the wing backs, okay?
Yeah.
But then Forster's 36 years old. So no, as I've said to you before, there's no position on the pitch that's changed more than the goalkeeper. They're now elite athletes that play like defenders. Most Premier League goalkeepers could probably play outfield at National League, League Two, even League One, Championship, some of them. They are actual footballers. Now, Forster isn't of that generation. Since he started and was learning to play and learning to be a keeper, the game has absolutely changed. He's this last bastion of the old style goalkeeper. But if he's had it drummed into him all week, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, and he's trying to do it and it's not his game, then it's partly the tactics that he's being told he's got to rigidly stick to that's put him in it. Do you get where I'm coming from? Of course, really he should just go, no, sorry, I need to lump this one, and I'll have to row with him in the dressing room afterwards. So, I mean, it partly is on him, because it's just he's being told you have to do this and you can't be knocking it long. But if that doesn't suit his game and suits him, like our outfield players, if they're not up to this style of play, because we're sort of missing 6 or 7 of them, do something a little bit different. Play the hand that's dealt you. That's what you've got to do. So I think there's, it probably does partly come down to him just trying to make somebody do something that they're just not used to do. It's not their style. So, there's a lot feeding into that. I think it does come down to him.
Look, Spurs' next 6 games to come: Forest away, Wolves at home, Newcastle at home, Liverpool at home, Tamworth away, and Arsenal away. It's a big month in store for Tottenham Hotspur, it's fair to say, with regards to where this season will shape, where it will go. Ange was asked for his overall thoughts on the game itself and said, look, difficult day for us and a painful result, but credit to them, they were very good and are in a great moment. They are very settled, in a great reign of form. They've got great belief. It was a bridge just too far for us. You could tell we were lacking a bit of energy and ability to really compete. The first question, look, we played you out there for those that are watching this show live. We played you out the, obviously, interview from the BBC. Ange was asked in the post-match presser of his thoughts in relation to, despite all the problems, will you benefit in the long term? And he said, look, I think I've been really, really patient in the last 18 months, sitting here answering the same questions over and over again. If people want me to change my approach, it's not going to change. We are doing it for a reason. We are doing it because we think it will help us to be successful. If people don't understand the circumstances we are in at the moment, the challenges we have from a squad perspective, which are obvious as you want to make them, I get the idea that people just think I should flip a switch and change and somehow miraculously make this a better team. It is what it is. I'm just going to continue, stay focused on trying to build this team to be where we want it to be. In the interim, we're going to have to accept there are going to have to be different challenges along the way. So Ange really kind of doubling down on the fact, as we've said throughout this part of the show, he's not going to change. He is going to stay regimented to this brand of football, whether it be 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 players out. This is not going to change. So it will be interesting to see, of course, how this does play out in the coming weeks, to be fair, because the January transfer window is upon us right now. And Ange was asked, can you bring in January signings? And he said, I guess if the players are out there, then yes. Again, it's about making sure it's something that's going to help us to continue to build on what we're going to do. So look, we're going to leave it right there. We are going to go for our next break of the show for our listeners on audio. We have got nearly over 7,000 of you that are watching the show live. Look, as always, thank you ever so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. I'm joined by broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams. I'm joined by Compère event entertainment host Richard Cracknell's in the house, and we've got Marlon over at the Spurs Kings with us here as well. I will make this point. I appreciate and understand everybody's got different tipping points, if I can say the words, when it comes to the ownership, the manager, the players. But again, I'll make that point. This show is there to perform you an informative I would say, analysis of where Spurs are at. But it's ultimately down to the viewer, listener, to make their own judgment about where they see Spurs are at in their mind. And everybody's got different views on that. So, like I say, that's why, again, I argue and say we produce the best show. I think we've got the best guests. And I think, we try and tell it as it is. But again, it's ultimately up to really the wonderful viewers and listeners, the fans out there that will make their judgment as to where they are when it comes to on these different subjects. Look, we are going to, for our sins, go back in terms of the lineup for this one. We made the point that, of course, for Liverpool, they basically had 7. That's not Liverpool, is it? Manchester United. This is where we're going on this bloody show. There you go. There's the top Liverpool lineup. This is where we're going. Absolute nuts, isn't it? Absolute nuts. We made the point actually beforehand that, Liverpool had the opportunity to rest players during the week when obviously they play in the Carabao Cup, which have advanced. To a reminder, that double leg is coming up, that first one of the double leg in week commencing the 6th of January. So that will be building around the corner. For Liverpool's lineup, it was Alisson, Alexander-Arnold, Gomez, Van Dijk, Robertson, Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Salah, Diaz, Gakpo over bench, Keller, Endo, Nunes, Jones, Elliott, Jota, Timiaskis, Kwanzaa, Nyoni. For Tottenham, they were unchanged from the win over Manchester United, which obviously set up that 2-legged semi-final against Liverpool. For Tottenham, of course, that team, Forster, Pedro Porro, Dragusin, Gray, Spence, Sarr, Basuma, Maddison, Kulusevski, Solanke, Son with a bench of Austin, Reguilon, Udogie, Dorrington, Bergvall, Olasise, Werner, Johnson, Lancashire. Look, I can ask the guys what they make of the team, but we all know the situation. I think that's the one thing. We're not being clouded here. We know, again, for the 4th time, I'm going to say it, we've got 10 players out. We've got 6 starters missing, but we are down, as to Harry Redknapp would say, as Russ and Crackers would know better than me, we are down to the bare bones. But again, it goes back to that point that when you are down to the bare bones, you would think from that perspective, you've got to have a little bit more adaptation to the way you're going to play. Because I think what was quite telling is, Russ, you actually said it actually in your opening line that Salah was asked in the win, what did he make of the way the game played out? He said, well, look, we knew the way Spurs were going to play. We knew the way Spurs were going to play. So for us,
he's
we
not
already
the
had
first,
an
not
insight.
the first person to say it either, Rick.
No.
Quite a few people have said it this season. I think Arnie Slot was a bit clever, wily old fox, very good manager, saying all the right things about Ange and Spurs, and I'd love to be a season ticket holder here, or how lucky season ticket holders are. I mean, and he knew exactly what he was going to do to Spurs, I mean, Kloppy would have done the same, I think, as well.
Yeah.
The concern, Rick, is, as you say, we know what the injuries are. We know that we got some young players. That's another debate. Why do we only bring in one first-team possible starter in the summer, which was Dom, and youngsters, blah, 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 blah. It's the tactics. It's the tactics. And he's just told us, again, he's not going to change. So I feel as though he's weaving his own rope for the inevitable.
I mean, look, also just to bring it into perspective, we showed you the stats actually at the start of this game. Spurs have now actually conceded 85 shots in the last 5 games alone. Billy there, one of our viewers, and this is contributing to that, which again is a worrying stat because look, for all the defensive work Spurs have done beforehand to be the 3rd best defence in the Premier League, when you are, again, with the point we make, they're at 3 of the current back 4. They are without their natural goalkeeper. But when you are conceding that amount of shots, you are going to lead to them conceding the amount of goals that we're conceding, right? I mean, that is the reality of things. I mean, in terms of the way that game started, just to kind of get us going in terms of the incident analysis, I mean, God, feels like an additional crime watch, doesn't it? Look, early place missed pass for Forster in the opening minutes. And I think we all said, what Forster needs in the opening 10, 15 minutes is a calming period. I mean, Cracks, God, in those next 10, 15 years when you get him on your couch, I'd love to know what he made of his Tottenham experience for 18 months. I mean, God, that would be one that might be a sellout. He misplaced the pass very, very early on. I mean, look, you've got to say balls on the guy. To decide in the opening 3 minutes to chip a pass. I mean, quite something remarkable. We had Forster and Sarr in action early to stop Liverpool as they went on the break. Spurs, they had a couple of opportunities. Good break with Gray, surging forward out of defence. Ball's played over the top of Kulusevski, knocked it back to Sarr, who then fired wide from a tight angle outside the box. Bissouma gave away the ball in the early period. Salah wriggled away before hitting the crossbar. 2 big blocks for Jed Spence, who, to be fair, this is going to sound crazy saying this, right? Because we lost the game 6-3. I know Salah scored twice, but up until Salah scored, I thought Jed did a fairly good job of keeping Mo Salah quiet. But I mean, the reality is that when we had in periods of that second half, quite frankly, everyone remember Rush goalie, right? You know, Rush goalie, everybody rushes up. Everyone remembers the Rush goalie. That was what it was like in certain periods of that game. I mean, you were sitting there thinking, is this a Premier League game of football? I mean, Crackers was making a joke that he hasn't seen this over Sunday League common, over Hackney with what some of the defending we've seen. But Liverpool eventually got their goal to go 1-0 up. And look, sitting there analysing all six would be crazy. But we'll try and go through them as quickly as we can. Liverpool obviously going ahead. Alexander-Arnold swung in across to the back post where Diaz was completely unmarked to head home after running between Porro and Dragoshin. It had been coming for the visitors. And I think, again, what will be the massive concern is the way in which that goal comes about, where Pat Mata Sarr had actually watched Diaz make that run across him into the box, did nothing. And both the centre-backs plus Porro haven't come themselves in glory at all. For Tottenham, they've now conceded the first goal in 14 times in the last 18 home games this year. I mean, Russ, we could go for all 6 goals. We don't want to kill people off here in terms of, footballing wise, but is the concern about also not just, again, we talk about the tactics, but the players' application in terms of switching on? Because look, we know we're without our starters, don't get me wrong, but with the players coming in, you have got a job and you have to be diligent in that moment to be doing that job. So with the way we're switching off the players in their positions, again, I appreciate it's not their natural positions. That's obviously a massive concern as well, right? By the nature of how we're conceding the goals.
Yes, absolutely. Incidentally, the first goal, we as football fans, we would all agree Trent's cross was absolutely outstanding. I mean, he's probably the only player in the Premier League who could do that. And the finish was great as well. One thing, Rick, that I think hasn't helped with the execution of the tactics that I've noticed, and I'm sure other people have, we are sloppy on the ball. We give away the ball a lot. I mean, to pick one person out is slightly unfair, but Biss does it an awful lot. And if you are trying to play out from the back in the way that you've done in training, and we've seen them do before when Ange first arrived at the club, you cannot afford sloppy passes. And that goes for when we're attacking as a unit, and then one pass goes astray, whoosh, they're straight through us. And we saw it this afternoon yet again, and we saw it against Manchester United in the last home game. I just think that the players maybe understand what he wants to do, but they're a bit in two minds whether they think it will actually work. Maybe that is part of the problem.
Yeah, and that's fair points on that. And in terms of, I say, the next kind of actions are playing out from there. There were, as I mentioned actually in the early part of the show, there were some black balloons being released by Spurs fans. Not a huge amount being released in the 24th minute, as there was a protest against ENIC chairman Daniel Levy. And from what we understand, again, was what we're reporting here, just to be clear, reportedly there were stewards being instructed to pop and confiscate the balloons before they actually got the opportunity to go off. We have covered that in the first part of the show, but just to be very, very clear, Liverpool do go 2-0 up. McAllister scores. He gets there ahead of forces head home after a ball loops up into his path. I mean, there were periods in that first half, again, just to shade balance here, getting out, jumped at every cross. And that's what happens when you don't have, as we've discussed before, sufficient depth in defence, no leaders or strength in the middle. But again, when you have got 3 of your back 4 available, that is what's going to happen. But there are times when you look at that first half alone where structurally without the ball, that will be a concern for a lot of fans when they look at it from a tactical perspective, because there's huge gaps, there's zero pressure on players, there's runners not being picked up. And the problem you've got with that is Liverpool are absolutely brilliant in exposing us, which is what actually Marlon, you said when it comes to the goals they scored. Now, it wasn't only Spurs that gave opposition goals. Spurs got a crucial one back, it felt, before half time. James Maddison getting onto the score sheet where he picked up a loose ball. He killed him a lovely shot, which for him was his 8th goal of the season. And he was really kind of whipping the crowd up at that point, James, to try and rally the crowd, who, to be fair, look, for those that were there, I think we'd all agree it wasn't the greatest of atmospheres. The weather wasn't great. Obviously, things going into the game, again, with the injuries, the record that we have got at the moment is the mitigating factors. But for James in total now, 100 Premier League GAs, 55 goals, 45 assists. Just on this point, Miles, I've seen a lot of comments on Maddison with regards to maybe he should have come off because he wasn't having a great game despite scoring. Can you understand this point Miles, the fact that Ange does seem to, as Russ spoke about in the opening period of the show, it's a frequency, isn't it, that Ange doesn't really keep him on for 90. He brings him off whenever we're chasing the game to win it, or, we've got players there that arguably need to get us back into a game. I'm not suggesting for one moment that we were going to maybe get back into that game at, 3-1 or 6-2, but can you understand that substitution in general when that is the vice captain of the football club? And one of the players that I think the fans turn to and look at and says, this is a guy that can score goals, and I think is our second or third top goal scorer this season.
Something's definitely up there. Maddison has been hit and miss for the majority of the season as well, but when he's one of our most influential players, when he's actually on the pitch, I think especially today when it was 3-1, and I'm thinking, why is he coming off? Why now? Because at the end of the day, when we're getting ripped by Liverpool, he weren't the worst player on the pitch. However, Ange will look at it and go, well, I made the sub, and who scored the goal eventually? Well, Kulu did end up scoring from the midfield position. So you're kind of looking at it going, did it work or did it not work? I don't know. So, but I'm looking at it going, we will not find out what the problem is with Maddison and Ange until one of them leaves the club. Because you can blatantly see there is something not...
You think there's a problem there? Even as
there is a problem.
Just to bring balance to this, after the Man United game, they're seen hugging on the pitch. They've been hugging actually on a number of different occasions. Do you think there's a problem there in your opinion?
There is a problem, and I think it came down just before the Man City game, where the rumours were in the media at the time is that they'd had clear the air talks. Hence the reason why Maddison was suddenly drafted back in for that game at the Etihad, and we was all kind of surprised that he was in the starting lineup. But as soon as the going started to get tough again, Maddison's the one coming off again, and you're like, but he's leaving him on the pitch, especially like today. There was no reason to take him off, and if I'm looking at it, I agree with Russ. Basuma was probably a prime candidate to come off because he was again doing what he done against Chelsea, where he's leaving players to run past him. He's leaving the midfield open. Sar's up and down. It depends on who's next to him. But I tell you something that's going to be quite interesting to see how different we're going to be once Benton calls back in against is it not Wolves? Forest. Because I believe he can play now. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how the dynamics of the team changes over the next couple of weeks to see if that's been a massive miss in the middle of the park. Because I think that's where we've been let down for the last 7 or 8 weeks, where Benton has been missing. And you can clearly see Basuma. I think a lot of people can clearly see Basuma's not up for it, and so we'll have to move on. So, but yeah, for me, there is something clearly not right, but we're never going to find out why they're both at the club until one leaves. We'll eventually get the real reason what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, let's say fair points on that. Liverpool do score again before the break. Spurs quite simply cut, absolutely wide open. This one is a tough blow to take, really, because they just scored before the break. And you had to wonder how Spurs did concede from there. This is 3-1. Liverpool were forcing us back, but then the move really gets turned on its head as the Boslai beats Dragoshin to a header. Then from Trent, a long ball is played forward. Salah plays it back to Szoboszlai, who slots home. Postecoglou at that point is going absolutely nuts on the touchline. Because obviously, look, if Spurs go into that game at halftime 2-1, I think we can all say, look, even the Spurs fans, we say this, we've got away with, in footballing terms, murder, right? Let's be honest about it, because, that could have been in the first half, really racking up a 3-4-5. So to go in at 2-1, you suddenly feel we're actually in a game here. But the nature of the way in which that goal falls at 3-1, it does take a sting out of the team. And, again, you would argue, do the players need to be as high up as what they are being? Again, is that an instruction? Is that is this players doing what players are just doing by themselves? I mean, look, there's been times where you guys will remember under Jose Mourinho was saying at times, I'm not asking the players to do that. Conte said that as well. So I'm sometimes loath to say the manager's asked them to do that when we've seen in the past, it's not always been the case. But when you're seeing a trend happen over and over and over and over again, to Cracker's point, it's really hard to not think, well, the players are being told to do this. So Spurs go in at half-time, Tottenham 1, Liverpool 3, and you can spot the team who made 7 changes, right? I think you could spot that. Spurs, again, not to get away from the fact, we are knackered. We are decimated by injuries. But again, you can only really judge, analyse what you are seeing out there when it comes to the game itself. And that's what we've got to try and do. So after half-time, Liverpool add a fourth. Salah scores. Porro's caught up the pitch after Kulusevski doesn't pick him out when completely free. Liverpool break, and although Gray makes a good double block in the box, Salah is there to smash home the rebound. Ange Postecoglou responds by a double substitution for Spurs as Sarr and Maddison come off, Bergvall and Johnson come on. You suspect with Nottingham Forest in mind, and I think quite worryingly, again, you have a point where one long ball completely outdoes us over the top by Addison. So Boslai's in again. He rounds Forster, but he fires it into the side netting. It was quite nearly 5-1. Then a couple of minutes later, it did end up being 5-1. I mean, Cracks, when it is at that moment there, 4-1, chance to be 5-1, eventually does become 5-1. Are you really fearing this is going to be a cricket score? Or could you see, like I say, Spurs did get a couple of goals back, to be fair to them. They did rally themselves. So is that an indication for you, just to be clear, the players are playing for Ange Postecoglou?
But whether that's they've sort of taken their foot off the gas a little bit, it didn't seem to be that way. So you have kind of got something there with these players, because they've nicked a couple of goals back, but it did just seem to anger them to go out and get the sixth, didn't it? Really, it's but we are scoring some goals, so there's obviously an ability in this squad. It is just a case of getting that balance right. So because as much as you're scoring these goals, we're just letting them in for fun at the back with the tactics and the personnel we've got. So there's lots feeding into this, isn't there? You've got a manager trying to do something with players he hasn't got, and a club with players that they haven't got, because they're not being sought and bought for to go into the squad. I mean, for all the shows that we do, Rick, I think Munn and Lang are getting a little bit of an easy ride, to be honest. I think their roles at the club really need to be looked at as well at the moment, because they've obviously identified Postecoglou to come in and be a Spurs manager. But at what stage did they look at this and go, has he got the personnel to do this? Now, if they're looking to Scotland and Japan as an indication that he could come and do this in the Premier League, well, then I hope that they become show business bookers, because I once won a karaoke contest down at the Dog and Duck pub, which means they'll probably go and book me to appear at the Royal Albert Hall, wouldn't they? And I'll get a nice fat fee for doing that.
Were you in the Royal Albert Hall at one point doing a show, or was you glad to be?
but you get it, it's just it's not, that's not going to work. I mean, I say with respect to the Scottish League, no respect to the Scottish League, it ain't the Premier League, is it? Nor is Japan. So I mean, these Munn and Lang, who are they? What are they? What do they do? What's their roles? Who are they bringing? I mean, to be honest, like Archie Gray is a fantastic find.
Oh, he is.
Today, I thought he was phenomenal today. What he was up against, and he's not even a centre-back, Rick, and he's 18 years old. Hats off to the lad, because he is properly giving it a good go. Same as Spence. There's two lads that have really had a good go today, and they're young. They're very young players, and they're up against a very, very good team and a difficult team to get something. So fair play, because their heads never dropped, and they've given this a right good go. But we've got to get some more quality, some ready to go, like box fresh, good to go Premier League players into this side. Ready for now. A little bit of experience, a little bit of nous, a little bit of leadership, but that comes at a cost, Rick. This team probably needs a good 2 to 3 80 million plus players. It would really benefit from a couple of, exactly. But why should it? But it should, there's enough money coming into this club to be able to do that. They should be.
What is your chicken soup analogy, Cracks? For those that haven't heard it before, what is the chicken soup analogy?
There you go. You can only make a certain level of chicken soup if you're given chicken shit as ingredients, isn't it? It's as simple as that. You can't make Wagyu burgers if you're just being given packets of mints. It's like we've got to have a couple of decent players, a couple of real leaders to come in and to complement Kulu. We really need a couple more Kulus in that side in their position. You would think Romero would be that person.
Just that mindset.
Yeah, just the mindset. Romero should be that person, but he just doesn't seem to be. He doesn't seem to want to be that. Kulu is. We just need a couple of those in there. They need to come in, and it might just perk us up a little bit, and just bring the overall quality up. But that's where we should be looking to go. But we're not. We're just simply not. And I can't say that we will do either.
I tell you what, on that point though, with Deki, I tell you, that's one player that, whether we like it or not, he sees a big future for him personally. I'm going to tell you this. People won't like me maybe saying this, that he won't let anything get in his way. And what I mean by that is that he will not, Russ, from the Swedish, well, we say this point here, you agree with me, Russ? He ain't going to stand for this. He will want to go. If we are not matching his ambitions, the same as Harry Kane was at the time, and many thought Kane would maybe stay because he loved Tottenham, maybe think Kulu would love Tottenham. I'm telling you, Deki will not stand for this. If the club are where they are in terms of their league position, not in the Champions League, not in the high tier Europe, he ain't going to stay, Russ. Is that fair?
No, I think it is fair. He's in the shop window in the Premier League with us, but he's in the shop window with Sweden. He's playing with Gutierrez, he's playing with Isak and him. I mean, what three wonderful attacking players the Swedes have got. And you're right, Rick. He's got big ambitions. But just to throw back to what Crackers was saying, he wants to see, Deki, 3 65, 70, 80 million pound players coming straight into the first team, and the club saying that we're serious and we're backing the manager. And the reality is that Daniel Levy, I think, spent 1.7 billion pounds. And yes, there has been some good players like Deki, for example, out of the recent ones. But analyze the wasted money on a significant amount of players, the Soldados of this world going back a few years, and sitting right at the top of the Daniel Levy Christmas tree of bad transfers, and Ndombele. And that was 65 million. So he has thrown some money at him. And this brings it to your point about Mr. Langer, of course, and his colleagues and the people before him making the decisions with money. You would give Daniel Levy $5,000 instead of putting it in the premium bonds, and he'd make it 10 grand within 12 months. But you wouldn't give Daniel Levy, in my opinion, 1.7 billion pounds to start dictating what footballers you're going to buy. And undoubtedly, he has had a hand in some of the players that have come in, maybe some of the successes, but almost certainly the ones that we've wasted money on and they haven't worked out and they've gone off elsewhere or they've left the club and we've had to sign them off, not on Ndombele, for example. So Deki and a few of the others would be delighted if these players came in. That I agree with Crackers, and I know from the comments a lot of our viewers and listeners think that in the summer we should have had 3 ready-made straight in the first teamers like Dom, another 2 or 3. And that says we're serious. That gives Ange a better chance of being able to play Ange ball. As it is at the moment, in a way, he's been let down by Daniel Levy and the board and the people who are in charge of signing. We're all for young players, Rick.
Yeah,
and I agree. Marty Gray's been brilliant. Bergvall is going to be a hell of a player. No one's saying they shouldn't come into the club, but this is competitive land we're in.
I think it's really important that we make that point there, as you said there, Cracks. I think Gray and Bergvall are going to be great players for the future. Yeah. But the thing is, you ask any fan, look, the future's great. What about the now? When do we actually ever look to focus on what is happening right now? And Spurs have got a big decision to make in these next 8-9 days when that window opens. They're going to have to give Ange Postecoglou, in my opinion, a significant amount of money. And Johan Langer, again, who is renowned really for finding young, prosperous gems, is going to have to really get, in Lee McQueen's words, his blue book out to have some players in there that I think are going to be able to come in and impact the team now. And I think that is the difference with Tottenham. they have missed the influence of Fabio Paratici because he had the ability to be able to source players outside of, I think, certain markets where I think Johan Langer is operating completely differently. I think Johan Langer is operating in more of a younger market, again, respect to that point. Fabio Paratici, if you remember, a couple of seasons ago, when you think about them in terms of their overall progress, Benson Court, when he came in, and Kulusevski were brought in that January transfer window, and Spurs, as many will remember, got into the top 4. I think, you know, what Spurs are going to need right now is, I think, as Russ said, there are 2 or 3 players that are here, ready for now, and I just don't see Spurs being able to do that. I hope I'm wrong. Look, as that game kind of rolled on, Liverpool did eventually make it 5-1. Mo Salah on the score sheet for his second of the game. Spurs quite simply a shambles defensively, heading towards, at this point, their heaviest defeat of the season, as they got another Forster at that point tipped away a save from Alexander-Arnold. Kulusevski fired across the face of goal. Kulu then got on the score sheet for 5-2. Crazy game for Kulu. It's his 5th game in a row where he volleyed home following a chip pass by Solanke. Spurs then opted to bring Timo Werner on in place of Heung-Min Son. And to be fair to the crowd, I'll say this now, they stayed with the team. You know, many did leave, but there was fans that were still in the ground to see Dominic Solanke score a really good goal from his perspective to bring it to more of a respectable score at the time of 5-3. But there was still time for another. Diaz with another, and another slick counter-attack from Liverpool's perspective. Salah into Diaz. He produced a lovely low finish to see it for 6-3. And you know what? Johnson had a chance towards the end. Could have made it 6-4, but I think the overall takeaways from that game is that, look, Liverpool are a great football team. They have got a great manager, but there's no doubt about it. I think the general consensus, not by everybody, but for many out there, would be Spurs certainly played a part in allowing Liverpool to rack up the amount of goals they did by the nature of how we played. And for those that did miss it, there were Squid Games in attendance. For those that weren't aware, Spurs announced before the game that they had teamed up with the Netflix hit series of Squid Games, where they deployed themselves at the stadium. It's quite funny that Squid Games found their way in, but the Leave Out Balloons didn't. I'll let you guys take away what you make of that one. Isn't that so Tottenham, right? The Squid Games came in.
Squid Games, didn't they, Rick? You got like 001, the old man is Joe Lewis, isn't it? Like, you don't realise it, but he's the head, and like Levy's the front man, isn't he, of all this? And like I said in the week, there's a few people at Spurs, especially within ENIC, that I would absolutely pay money for to see them play red light, green light. I would sit there and absolutely love that. It's just, look, I get all this sort of thing. I get that clubs do it. It's good money into the clubs, NFL concerts, you know, monster trucks on ice, whatever it is. Brilliant, all brilliant. But it's revenue streams. It's good money coming into the club, but that has to convert back into the football club. You know, we have to take that. And the trouble is, when you're in these moments and when the feelings are like they are, and we're all thinking, you don't seem that worried about us as a football club, mate. And you see these things, they don't sit right, do they? If you're flying and doing well, you're like, yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. There's another, I don't know, 200 grand in the pot for coming and having a tie up with us today. But you know, when things are like they are, it just looks eggy, doesn't it? It just looks, I don't know, a bit all a bit off, really. We just seem to be running here, there, and everywhere. But I know a lot of football clubs do it. Oh, you know, an official paint supplier, an official, I don't know, asbestos supplier, an official like chemical weapons supplier. It's just like we've teamed up with this one and that one, and you're just like, oh, come on, like, you know, you're gonna address the football issues that are going on at this club at any time, or are you just gonna keep running around lifting your skirt up left, right, and centre? Speak to us about the football side of things. They just all seem to be wanting to tell us, oh, you know, we've got this and we've got that and we're doing this and we're doing that, and they crow about that. But when it comes to the football, it's all just a bit like, oh, no, we don't want to talk to you lot about this. You know, you just get on with what we give you. Thanks very much. You know, it's so they've got to get the balance right. I've always said that a chairman of a football club should be able to come down pre-match and come to like one of the bars in the stadium and stand another pint with the fans. If you can't do that without fearing for your safety, you're not running your football club correctly. You're really not. You should be able to be scrutinised in an unsanitized fashion and be able to do things like that. You should be able to mix with the fans, your customers, as they like to call us, of your club. So, all of this thing, yeah, it's nice, but it just doesn't sit well, Rick, when things ain't great. It really doesn't.
It doesn't. And like I say, we go into, this period now where the games are coming thick and fast. And for Tottenham, of course, they've got next Nuno Espirito Santo on the horizon on Boxing Day, followed by a bouncing Wolverhampton Wanderers side that have gone to a good start under Victor Pereira. And, it's going to be an intriguing period to come where Ange Postecoglou has said he will not be changing. He will be doubling down and made the point that for him now, it is about seeing the job through when it comes to the players that he's got available. And I will just bring in these closing quotes from the game because we're going to summarise and get the guys' final thoughts on it. Ange was asked the question at 5-2, the fans were still singing your name. How much does that personally mean to you? And said the fans, I've often said, should feel the way they need to about what's happening. I thought they were very good given it was a difficult day for sure, but they've still got to support the players, which was important. And who knows, maybe some of them understand the situation we're in right now. It seems many don't. Maybe some of them understand, maybe some of them don't. In the context of what we're trying to do, where we're at, I hope they're seeing what we're trying to build here, because I really believe it's going to be something that the club and the fans are going to want to see. But it's interesting there, Cracks, because just on this point, there's a certain level of understanding. He's acutely aware, I think, of social media, of Last Word on Spurs and channels like this that are having different opinions on him. And he doesn't, how to put this, I don't want to be biased or unbiased. I don't think he likes the fact that he's being challenged. We saw that in that BBC interview that he played midway through the show. But this is the Premier League, right? We are fans of the football club. And we are going to judge. We are going to have an opinion. And that is the reality of where football is now in 2024, soon to be 2025. This is the modern day. And you are judged game to game. You are judged minute by minute, second by second. This is the biggest league in the world. For many people who are Tottenham fans out there, I will say this. Tottenham are their life. Tottenham is everything. They go to work 5 days a week to see their football team. This for people is everything. They care. I'm not saying that it suggests that we don't care, but when results aren't good, there are going to be questions asked. And just by stats alone that we brought into the show, many are going to be disillusioned where we are right now, even caveating the fact that we've got 10 players out, 6 starters missing, without the first choice goalkeeper, without 3 of the back 4. I think it's important that we mention that, Cracks. Have to. The fans will have different views, and that's what it is.
Well, Ange better know that you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. This is the Premier League. It's as simple as that. You don't get that kind of time, that leeway, that allowance. You've got to be the elite of the elite. You've got to find ways and solutions and overcome obstacles and challenges that come your way. And if that's players that you lose, then you have to just, do something a little bit different next week until you get those players back where you can do what it is that you want to do. It doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater and your philosophies, but you tone them down and you round off the edges of them a little bit sometimes. Like today, he's not got 6, 7 of his normal starters. He can't do what it is that he does. So, that's not to say that we would have beaten Liverpool today if we'd have done that. They're a fantastic side. I think under Slot, they're an even better team than they was under Klopp. I think he's found a new way for them to play, and I think they're even better at it. The fact that Slot was actually bigging up Ange all week and what he's done, I thought was fantastic. Of course he's going to do that and say, I love the way Ange plays, because Mo Salah came out afterwards and said we knew what they were going to do. He's a bit like the rotten thief that helps the old girl across the road, being all nice to her while he's got his hand down her handbag, nicking her purse. That's why he was tickling his belly all week. He wanted him to be Ange and play Ange ball. So, You know, even from I think it was last season or the season before when Gary O'Neill was at Wolves and beat us at home. And then, like as I said, I think I've said this before, was on Sky and actually gave like about a 10-minute presentation, almost with a PowerPoint, on what he'd done to beat Spurs. And then we went to Wolves, and he'd done it again. He'd done it again. He'd already said we're going to do it. So, you know, it's obviously some sort of in-joke within football where everybody goes, right, Tottenham are going to do this, just do this. Just do this. So this is why I'm saying he's got to find different ways and different solutions. He has to. But eventually, look, no matter what we sit and gather and say about him, if he's not winning games and losing 20 out of 40 and being 11th, he will get sacked. He'll get himself sacked. And Russ was right. He's weaving his own rope at the moment. He really is. You're just not going to get that allowance to build this utopia, this nirvana that he seems to be wanting to build. That's not coming. That is just not coming. It doesn't. It's not happening. Even if you get every player that you want, you've still got to find solutions and ways in games rather than what he's doing with this. I'm doing this today. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. It's not enough, Rick. It's not enough. It's not happening.
I mean, Miles, I'll come to you. Look, and again, reiterates this point that, again, I will navigate us through a difficult period and try and make sure we get to a position where hopefully we have a healthier squad and some key players back where we're in a position where we can improve our position in that table. Again, I'll reiterate that point, that table now sees Spurs drop into the bottom half of the league. Spurs 11th in the Premier League, 23 points from 17 games so far this season. And he said on this point that if you're saying that 10th means I'm not doing a good job and I maybe somehow should be uncomfortable, well, that is for others to judge. Miles, where are we going into these next 6 games? Really, really big 6 games for the football club. These are obviously before we hit the Carabao Cup semi-final as well.
Look, he's got to get some results and he's got to get them quick. He's got to change the narrative. He's got to do something over the next. Look, we've got Forest, which now is looking like a harder game than predicted, but now Spurs will probably go get a result. The Wolves game, look, it's at home. Can he lose that? Yes, he could, but the results have got to change. We shouldn't be 11th. We shouldn't be 11th. I think this is what people need to understand. The squad that we've got, we're not expecting to be anywhere first, second, or third, or fourth, but we shouldn't be 11th. There needs to be some understanding.
And that's in addition, Miles, to the injuries. We shouldn't be 11th.
And that's with the addition of injuries, because the injuries have only happened. The main injuries have only come recently. They've been here before. So for me, you're looking at it going, he should be getting a lot better out of this squad than he is. And I think that's the problem. And we shouldn't be conceding the amount of goals that we have done in the last 3 games, even at home, even with the injuries, right? Because at the end of the day, you look at it and go, other managers would have seen the circumstances and gone, I can't exactly play that way and go and expose my team to these level of goals that we're conceding. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. But we are now 11th. There's going to be more defeats in there. We know there is, but it is a long season.
We didn't lose 8. We didn't lose 8 Miles to April of the last season. We're already on 8.
And also remember, we had injuries last season as well, and everyone kept saying, "Wait till we get our players back. Wait till we get our players back." We got our players back, and we stunk out the joint. So I think that's the worrying thing, because it's not even a case of once we get our players back, it's all suddenly going to turn in the right direction. Because we saw it last year. I mean, when Maddison was out, Van de Ven was out, Romero, we had to go buy Timo Werner because we had to sign at the Asia Cup and stuff like that. So for me right now, I'm just looking at going and turn the results around. Do something that's slightly different. If you have to adjust, tweak.
He's told you he's not. He's told you he's not.
He's got to. He's not.
But he's told you, Miles, he's not going to change. He's not going to change. He's not.
He says that, but there's been certain games in, like, let's take Manchester City away. He changed. He didn't sit there and play exactly the same way, even though people like to think he did. He didn't, because Manchester City had the ball. He had to play counter-attacking football against City, so he can change. It's just whether he chooses to change his ways. Which is, if he's going to say that now, But when we come up against the Wolves next week, and if Pereira's done his research and he just takes the Gary O'Neill handbook, we're kind of screwed. So he's got to start getting some results, and if he needs to grind them out, he's got to. Otherwise, by the end of January, I think I said this before. If he's out of all the cuts by the end of January, he's got nothing left. Absolutely nothing left.
Miles, thank you so much. We'll see you for Wolves. Actually, I think you're on back-to-back for the next couple of games.
But yeah.
I'm so sorry. Crack's got Boxing Day off. I bet he's delighted. The chickens and Mrs. S. God help us.
I'm going on the Lashdown Porta del Carmen with the Lanzarote Spurs massive. See you in Lineker's, Dusty. I'll be there.
Do me a favour, Cracks. Ask if anyone available for Thursday, will you, for the Nuno derby? God help us. God help us. Let's close him.
He'll make us so proud. He'll make us so proud.
No, I'm already dreading it. You got him. You got Andrew with his hands in his pocket. Nuno stroking his beard. Merry Christmas. Honestly, this football club. Thanks, Russ. Let's close it, Russ, and let's wish everyone a happy Christmas. And let's get out. It's like let's get out of here.
I'll keep it brief, Rick.
Russ, before you do, just to close on this comment, you're going to come back on this. Ange Postecoglou was asked, the schedule remains busy, so you think reinforcements are needed in January? So look, absolutely. Some of them will be internal. So we're at different stages of getting players back from injury. We've got a couple of long-term ones in Vic and Wilson, but the rest hopefully at some point in January they'll be back. That will help us in terms of just getting those numbers back we need and dealing with the schedule, because the schedule is not going to change. We're in the Carabao Cup. He made this point. We're in the Carabao Cup semi-final. We're still in Europe. We're in the FA Cup that starts soon. We're still in all competitions, so it's not going to get any easier. We're going to need some of those players hopefully to come back and continue. But he made the point for him that I guess if the players are right, we are going to bring players in.
Okay.
Close it for us, Russ. Close it.
Well, I mean, that or may not.
Get us out of here.
It might not be the case. It's been great seeing all of the comments coming in tonight. Loads of different views. I don't agree with all of them. They don't agree with mine or Crackers or Marlon or even you, dear leader Ricky.
Can't believe it. Can't believe it. I don't agree with me. What's wrong with them?
I know. What happens in January?
I can do an Ange right now.
No, don't do an Ange. Come on. Let's hope for a good January. But, the way I look at it is these games that are coming up in the next few weeks, they're, to give you a horse racing analogy, these are big fences in the Grand National. And there's a capacity for him to fall. Not once, but twice, impossible in the Grand National. And I think he's got to be very, very careful of that. The one thing I would say about today is, and we've used the phrase between us miles off it, as far as Liverpool are concerned, we are miles off them, right? That everyone saw that today. And what really annoyed me, Rick, is that at times it was like they were playing a training game against us. It was that bloody easy.
Yeah.
And I think we were lucky to only concede 6. That is my honest opinion. But hopefully, as D. Ream sang, things can only get better. We shall see. Happy Christmas, everyone. It's and we mean that. We mean that, Rick, don't we? Happy Christmas.
We do.
Have a few drinks.
Yeah.
Get over on a plane with Crackers in the old Elas Canarias and get stuck into some of his Jaeger bombs and whatever he drinks.
Well, look, there'll be one final comment before we go from Andrew. He was asked, how far are Tottenham away from Liverpool? And in terms of that full strength, that is, I don't know, because we're still growing as a team and we are 18 months into building
about 320 miles, Rick.
He said, it's fair to say we've had some challenges along the way, considering the availability of players, particularly at the moment. So it's very hard to see where we're at. I'll play on a thing, Ange. What I will say is the players are not wavering in their commitment to what we're trying to do. Even in this game, I'm really proud of the fact that we still tried to play our certain way, knowing that is our way forward. I think I'm going to
get us off. Rick, let's get off quick.
Right, we're going to go. We're going to go for our own health and mental aspect here. Marlon's like, he's about to go. I tell you what, look, guys. Firstly, thank you so much. Nearly over 8,000 of you watched the show live. For your own sake as well, get away and just have a really, really good Christmas. And we are coming back with you for a preview show for Forest. Where I will be for that, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know where that will be or when it will be. But we're coming back with you very, very soon. The support, as always, is overwhelming. I'm sure you guys will understand that these are not easy shows to do straight after. I think we're literally reactive moments after. So you are getting real emotion, you're getting real passion, but you're also getting brutal honesty of where some Spurs fans feel, not everybody. So look, most important thing, love, respect to everybody's families out there, friends, cousins, nephews. Just go have a really, really good Christmas and try and take your mind off the club that we all love, Tottenham, because like at the end of the day, you can hear my voices going, we need to rest ourselves on what's to come. It's going to be a busy next, I think, few weeks, few months in store. Crackers, I won't tell you what's behind that poster. It better be bloody Gary Megson, though. Because I think that will kill us off.
When that goes, I know I'm getting the North Korea leader up there next. That's my next poster up there.
Right,
Might get myself a nice Squid Games poster. How about that?
I tell you, what a football club. What a football club. I agree. Sack Ricky. About time I do get off this bloody show. Right, listen. From the wonderful Richard Crackers Cracknell, from the superb Marlon, the Spurs Kings, from broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams, we've been the last word on Spurs. Please keep safe, keep well, and as always,
come on, you
Spurs.